All right, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He is Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, athletic director, and also the host of Celtic Chalk Talk. Celtic Chalk Talk is a pod dedicated to the latest news and opinions surrounding the Boston Celtics, a team I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit today. From a lifelong fan, Steve, his pod will drop new episodes every Monday, but this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 24 minutes of NBA random thoughts online anywhere. And as the NBA playoffs are rolling, we've got a lot to talk about today. This podcast was born out of the content in Steve's 13 Rules random NBA thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules random NBA thoughts article, where he shares his random thoughts after the second week of the 2025-26 NBA playoffs with some surprises, some shockers, some big shots, some crazy shots. We'll talk about all of it. But before we get into it, if you're listening to this, we want you to know that we are an independent, fan-driven show on the Peach Basket Podcast Network. We're not owned by a big media company, which means what you hear comes straight from real fans who live and die by the game every day. If you believe voices like this should be heard, the best way to support us is simple. Keep listening, tell a friend, like, comment, share. As soon as this episode ends, head over to the peachbasketpodcastnetwork.com. Head over to the peachbasket.net. Check out more fan run podcasts and help this independent network grow the way it started organically, one hoops fan at a time. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Steve, are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. Clock is running. We got a lot to talk about. All right, we're going to do today what we did last week. I thought it went really well. We're going to go through each series. And if you wrote about it, we'll talk about it. If you didn't, we'll talk about your thoughts on the series. Now, we're just talking the first round series. Some have been decided already. We'll start with one that has, and that is the Thunder versus the Suns. Wasn't much of a matchup at all. I don't think anybody expected it to be. But you wrote something interesting. Now, this applies both to the Thunder series and the Spurs series. You wrote that since 2014, every NBA champion has won the first round in 5 games or less. Is that coincidence, or is that something we need to keep an eye on?
Think Oklahoma City and San Antonio probably are the two best teams, and they're the ones that did it in 5 games or less. So I think it might be a coincidence, and naturally things sometimes happen. Somebody gets hurt or somebody whatever. But I think right now, if you were a betting person, you probably put your money on Oklahoma. But if not, if you couldn't, I would guess San Antonio would be the second team you'd put your money on.
Sure.
Yeah, things happen, and maybe this won't happen because there's other teams that are pretty good. That could be a problem. But we can't tell about injuries. But yeah, I think it's pretty interesting, and because usually the first round, good team hammers the bad team, and that's what we got in those two series. I
Yeah.
mean, Portland didn't even belong on the same court half the time. When San Antonio turned it up, they just killed them. And Phoenix similarly with Oklahoma.
Yeah. No, undeniable. It's good to see that we didn't have that across the board. In other words, the other series have been pretty good. There've been some really good storylines.
Great.
I think those were
They've
the
been great.
only two that have been just pretty much over from the start.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been great. The other series have been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. All right. So before we go on to the next series, some of the more interesting ones, with apologies to the others, tell me about your thoughts for the Blazers and the Suns. I think neither one of them. We saw their weakness. We saw they're close, but they're not quite there. Are these teams that are going in the right direction, or is this a one and done for both of these teams?
Or an interest.
Right.
They have some players and they have some pieces. If they want to get in the market for a Giannis, they might have the ability to put up enough young players and players to make that trade.
Wow.
So that gets interesting, and they have some talent. I don't know if that talent, as it develops, is good enough to be anything better than a second round team. But they do have the opportunity with the talent they have. Shaden Sharp doesn't even get used much. Not that he doesn't get used, but he's not even one of the 3 guards they're counting on next year. They're talking about
Mhm.
Drew Holiday, Scoot Henderson, and Lillard. So a lot of teams would take Shaden Sharp. So what I'm saying is
Mhm.
there's people that you can trade to get something. With Phoenix, they need more. They just need more. They're just Dylan Brooks is a good player. He's a borderline all-star maybe, and Booker's a good player. But after that, when Mark Williams, he misses as much as he plays. So they need another player. They need another real good player to become a good team. And by that, I mean somebody that's all-star level. And
Yeah.
if they don't, they will outwork teams and maybe be a play-in team for a while. That's the height of it.
Yeah, as a fan of Chauncey Billups, it's good to see, right? That for me personally, I've always liked his career. I actually saw him in an airport once, didn't go up to him or anything, just didn't want to be weird. But I like the guy. I just think he was never a star, but led his team to the championship, that kind of stuff. That underdog thing surrounding Chauncey is cool, something that appeals to me. So I'm happy to see the success he's had in Portland. But I agree with you. I think the team is currently constructed it is not going to get much further than they got here, maybe the second round. They need to do what most teams at this point need to do. That's add a little horsepower. Giannis would be interesting. Let's see how it plays out. All right, let's move to the East and talk about. Let's see which one here. How about the Knicks versus the Hawks? Now, that's an interesting one. The Hawks gave the Knicks a little bit of a scare. I think that's fair to say. The Hawks, we'll talk about the Hawks first. Let's talk about the Knicks. And specifically, let's talk about what the Knicks did to the Hawks. You wrote about it, right? That you called it a total destruction. When I saw the score, I thought it was wrong. I thought this my phone was glitching. It was unbelievable. Now, does that speak to how far the Hawks were and it was fool's gold, or how good the Knicks are?
I don't think it was fool's gold. I think the Knicks figured some things out in that game, and they played accordingly. And I think they realized how good they can be. But you know what? They're not gonna play that well. Just Anunoby's not gonna shoot that well. Every one of them is not going to be like that. And I think after a while, don't forget the Knicks won the games they won were I think all over 10-point wins. So I think Atlanta once the Knicks got out on them, I think Atlanta said, "Oh no, this is done." And the Knicks just they were tremendous. They were tremendous. But I think the Knicks are very dangerous, and right now they're the favorite in the East.
Mm,
But are they going to revert back to what they were, meaning that team that struggles and plays underneath what their talent is, or are they going to begin to play like this? Now they play Philly tomorrow night, and Philly's got to be a tired, beat up team. Embiid was hobbling up and down the court at the end of
yeah.
it. But so I would think the Knicks should be okay tomorrow night. But then after tomorrow night, it will get interesting. Philly, if they continue to play as well as they did against Boston, it'll be an interesting series. And I think it comes down to the Knicks being able to play as well as they've been playing.
Yeah, I think it's like as much as I want to go down the rabbit hole of the second round series, I kind of want to just focus on the first.
Yeah,
There's a lot to talk about, but yeah, I watched a little bit of the end of the Boston Sixers game, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, I saw Embiid hobble. But interestingly, I think he hit knees with somebody, and then a moment later, he's diving for a loose ball. I don't know if that's adrenaline or what it is, but going back to the Knicks blowout of the Hawks, what was interesting to me was showing the chart, right? You see this, I think it's on ESPN, where it shows you how big of a lead it is, and it just goes up and down usually. And the Hawks actually led 9-5
right.
about, I don't know, 3 minutes in or something. And it was like the Knicks just took that personal. And then it was unbelievable. Just embarrassing. But again, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm rarely right, but I think I said before the series about Okongwu not being big enough to play in this series.
Yeah, you did.
The Hawks need to go out and get some big size. They had Porzingis, but they dealt him because he never played, and to Golden State. But they need to go out and get somebody that they can count on, and by that, a 7-footer that can play every night,
Yeah.
because that's their biggest problem. Without now, Okongwu shows himself well because he can shoot the ball and he can do different things offensively that can help. But you're asking a lot for him to play against the Carl Anthony Towns and just hold his own. And then Mitchell Robinson off the bench. he's in a different realm playing against those guys because Robinson's a great offensive rebounder, and so on. So there's a lot. If the Hawks go out and get a legitimate big, and don't forget they have New Orleans first round pick. So if they can go out and get a legitimate big through some way, they're an interesting team. The other thing I'll say about the Hawks, everybody has anointed Jalen Johnson as a star. Stars take over those games or try to. He
Right.
was very reluctant to even, he gave the ball up and was very passive in those games. So they need to establish somebody, an alpha on that team. But
Yeah.
but the Hawks are not as far away as 50 points losing. They're not that bad a team.
Okay. So before we move on to the teams that are still playing, between the Suns, the Blazers, and the Hawks, who has the better future? Who's closest to taking that next step?
Who do you think?
Oh, wow. You do this to me sometimes, and I'm never ready.
Yeah, I like to.
All right. I don't think the Suns. Again, I'm a fan of the Blazers. It's got to be the Blazers or the Hawks. But I think the Hawks really relied on CJ, and I don't think CJ is not somebody who's going to get better. So I would think it's going to be the Blazers, the Hawks, barring any trades, and then the Suns. What do you
Totally,
think?
totally agree. Totally agree. The Hawks, like I said, need an alpha. I think Portland has amassed a lot of decent to good players, and they've just got to sort it out and put it together. But the problem for the Blazers is you're in the West, and what the West
Yeah,
is, you've got
yeah,
five or six pretty good teams, and then the levels go down. Where in the East, it seems like it's anybody's game. So it's a lot different. And it's going to be hard for them to get into that top four level.
yeah, yeah. All right, and I did leave out one team that is also going home, and that is the Houston Rockets. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about that series. Let's talk about where they land in the group that we just listed. You talked a little earlier about being right. Here's one I got totally wrong. I did not give the Lakers a chance. I don't think very many people outside of LA did. They were without Austin Reeves, they were without Luka Doncic, and they were up against a Kevin Durant led. And obviously, he only played one game, but very good defensive team in the Houston Rockets. And the Rockets just imploded. Like, what happened?
Sometimes in the NBA, it's not about you winning, it's about the other team losing. I think the
Wow.
story here was about Houston. I think they struggled all year to play as a group, a team, and they really had no personality. Don't forget the three injuries: Van Vliet
Sure.
before the season, Steven Adams when they played the two bigs, him and Shangun, they were dangerous. And then Durant in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Durant didn't help matters with his burner phone incident.
Yeah.
And I think the team never really came out of that. But all year they were losing games to teams they should beat, and they were just not in any way. They had a little bit of a streak at the end of the year, but they just weren't consistent and they weren't as good as they hoped. The thing that was surprising to me when Van Vliet got hurt during the summer, they didn't go out and get a point guard. They
Right.
thought Reed Shepard would be the answer, and he might be the answer of being a sixth man that can come in and shoot the ball. But I don't know if he's the answer as a point guard.
Yeah.
And Udoka is a defensive coach. Shepard is not a defensive player. So there's a lot of things that just weren't right. And it didn't make sense what they did. I thought, and I just read that the owner Fertitta is going to keep both Raphael Stone, the GM, and Ime. I thought that somebody would have a problem after this. But obviously, as I said, I got one right with Okongwu, I get five wrong. And this one would be one of them but I think they're close. But they do have the Duran curse, and they've got to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason. They've got to make a KD decision, right? You said Ime's coming back. The owner said Ime's coming back. So that's done and done. I'm going to put on my LA hat now and say we've been given kind of the credit for this loss, for this win, depending on where you look at it from, to the Rockets. But we got to give a little credit to the Lakers. They still had to play. LeBron still had to be the most amazing 41-year-old basketball player in the history of ever. You got to give a little credit to the Lakers.
Yeah, you can, and there's no problem. But the point being, I think Houston was set up to lose no matter who they played.
I,
I think I just don't think this was Houston's year. There might be another year where it will be. And I think
yeah,
sometimes that's the story about one team, not about both. Yeah, give the Lakers all the credit in the world and LeBron and all the other stuff because he always dominates in the early rounds of the playoffs. So you got to give him credit for that.
yeah,
But more to me, the story is Houston and the stories, the problems they have.
yeah. Fair enough. And looking back, when KD signed, he was excited. Houston was excited. On paper, it looked like a perfect matchup. You've got this young, hungry
Yeah.
team, this veteran to lead them, who's one of the best closers of all time, one of the best players of all time. And it just didn't work. And it gets back to what you and I talked about before. Being a GM is tough, right? On paper, I think 9 out of 10 people make that decision, make that trade to bring in KD. It just didn't work because of mentalities, because of, I don't know, because of nuance, some kind of weirdness. It just didn't work. It didn't fit.
Well, you look at that, and that's okay. I think you had the number three pick in the draft from a couple of years ago, Jabari Smith, and he's never gotten better than a corner shooter and maybe a fourth best guy on a team. When you number three pick, you expect a hell of a lot more than that.
Mm,
You got Asar Thompson, who his brother has become more of an offensive player than Asar. You've got Tariq Eason, who everybody's predicting great things, but where's it coming? And these people haven't really progressed to that level that you wanted to see. You know what
mhm.
the Lakers did? They did a great job in patchwork with Rui, and these are guys that not $15 million, $12 million players. Marcus Smart came out of nowhere to play well.
Yeah.
Don't be hating DeAndre Ayton. He held his own, and so on. He wasn't Will Chamberlain, but he held his own. So they
He was
got
Clint Capella.
that's a whole different thing. And it's funny, a guy like Ayton, what did he go first in the draft, or he
Yeah.
went? Yeah, he remind, and I'm going to use this. He's a lot like Miami's Mr. Wiggins, first in the
Mm,
draft. You
mhm.
can't cut a person open and find out their drive. They're good players, they're talented, but you don't know if they want to be the best guy on the court.
Mhm.
And that goes with it. And that's where Aiton is. He's talented, but he's just there if you watch a game.
Yep. All right, let's stay in the West. Talk about another one that was a bit of a surprise. Although you and I talked about how statistically, analytically, the Wolves have the best chance to win it all. A couple shows back, we talked about why that is. Not that we necessarily agreed with it, but that's what the numbers say. The Wolves check every box that most champions have had over the last course of the last 20, 30 years, which is pretty incredible. They beat the Nuggets, and they did it without their best player. So you called out the fact that the Nuggets have got some big decisions coming up regarding Peyton Watson, and so you dove into the Nuggets, which obviously is big decision for them. Let's talk about the Wolves. How did they do it without DiVincenzo, without Ant? They're hobbled, yet they beat a team that undeniably had a great chance to win it all.
Alex Gordon is hurt, which is a major thing because he gets everything moving, and he didn't play, and that's that or he was hurt, and on and off he played, but he that doesn't help them. The Nuggets they're weird in the way that they gave Christian Brown a 25 million a year for 5 years or something ridiculous. So they're like just constructed in an odd way, and it's going downhill. You still have the best player in the game, but after that, it's going downhill. So I didn't see it coming where Denver would be showing that they're going downhill, but they showed it. And Minnesota, they've got a lot of heart. McDaniels can drive you nuts because he'll do stupid things, but he can play. And Randall kind of played well, and even with DiVincenzo going down, Edwards hurt, they held their own, and they found somebody in Ayu Dosunmu who's going to hit the lottery because he'll be a free agent, restricted, I believe. No, he's not a restricted; he's a regular free agent. He's going to hit the lottery this offseason. but they found that it's been pieced together. But one thing you always get with Minnesota is they play hard. They really play hard all the time. So you never
Yeah,
know what you're going to run into.
yeah. See, and as a fan, that's all I want from my team. That sincerely. As long as you go out there and you play hard, you battle. You lose a tough game, you lose by 20 or 30, you win a couple
Yeah.
of. I just want to see some effort, man. And that's the worst part of being a fan of a team. I won't name any names, but I will say maybe the Sacramento area has a team that maybe doesn't always do that.
Which area? I
Would
didn't
you?
hear that.
Did Sacramento area? Yeah, but again, I don't want to name names. But teams like that are hard to root for. You want to see effort, so I appreciate that you called that out. We want to make the shot clock
Sure.
here, and we really do. And so we got three more games to talk about. We're
Oh,
not going to talk about the game sevens, although I do want to hear a prediction. But I want to give most of the time to the Celtics versus the Sixers. Now, this was a phenomenal series between two of the best franchises in NBA history, historic franchises, which have got a ton of history together. I was shocked to find out, literally shocked, that the Sixers had not beaten the Celtics in a playoff match since 1982.
yeah.
That is shocking to me. I had no idea. I knew that Embiid couldn't beat him, but it goes all the way back to that Dr. J era. That's
Yes.
crazy. That is wild. They
Yeah.
have owned them, and the Sixers beat them in seven. How did that happen in Boston?
It happened. First of all, with Embiid playing, they're pretty talented. And nobody could have predicted that George would shoot 55% from three, or Edgecombe, a rookie, would play as well as he did. He's a good player, but he would. And then Maxey's great. Embiid, Boston had no answers how to defend him or what to do. Embiid was too big and too strong for Boston. So there was a whole bunch of things that went wrong for Boston. Boston began to rely on the three, and very rarely over the year did they have three bad games in a row not shooting the three. They did it the last three games of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of factors that went into it, but don't lose the fact that Philadelphia's pretty good, and they're dangerous. If Embiid is healthy, that's four pretty good offensive players right there that you're playing with, and Oubre defends real well. So they're dangerous. For Boston, they saw some things. During a season, you can hide different things because you get ready. Somebody's on a three games of four night type situation, and you run into them and you can beat them. But there were some weaknesses for Boston. They really couldn't. Cade is a nice player, but he's not Embiid, and he couldn't defend them. He got in foul trouble all the time. Boston had their issues in playing against him, but Philadelphia, they won the series. Don't take that away from them. Yeah, Boston didn't play as well. They shot poorly from three and all the other things, but Philly deserves a great deal of credit. One other
Yeah,
thing, too, when you watch Boston, and Boston did it in game six, and someone in game five. When Boston goes into their Tatum and Brown one on everybody game without ball movement, they sink. And they
yeah,
did that in game six, and they did it in parts of game five. And that really didn't help the situation. Things happen and you move on, but Philly's good. Don't undersell them if they can keep everybody on the court.
yeah. Outstanding. Yeah, I'm an underdog guy. I have a soft spot in my heart, which I think is why I gravitate to the Clippers, who I covered for a while. That's the ultimate underdog. And seeing how the Sixers have just been beaten up by the
Yeah,
Celtics for 40 plus years, it's cool to see. But you heard the buzzer go off. Another shot clock violation is what we do here. But I do want to we don't want to go too deep down the
sure.
rabbit hole at all. But we got two game sevens that we're going to enjoy today. I want your pick, right? The Pistons versus the Magic in Detroit, the Cavs versus the Raptors in Cleveland. Both are improbable. Both shouldn't, neither one of these should have gone seven. I'm sure that Detroit and Cavs fans would agree. Who wins? Pistons, Magic.
The Pistons should win, and I think Orlando's got to live with blowing that lead the other night, and they've got
That's
to live
crazy.
with Wagner being out. I think, as I wrote, Mosley, I think after they lose, he'll be gone. Because that loss, if they would have lost a close game that was nip and tuck the whole way, but that loss is just hard to forget. And I think
Yeah.
that unless Orlando pulls the major upset, which I really don't see, so I think that's fairly easy. Detroit will manage to hold on.
Okay, now you called out the coach too for the other game, Cavs Raptors, but you said that it was the better team here. Let's say you call it what it is, right? Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs. If he doesn't win this game, he's in trouble.
I would think he would be. I think if I were to bet, of course, I would take the Cavs. I don't know what the line is or whatever, but the point being on that, if James Harden plays like he always does in these games, it gets interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and Jared Allen, he's got to play. He has a tendency to disappear. So they need something out of them. Toronto scrappy. Scotty Barnes can't, he's not a great shooter, but he can play. And then they got that bounce from Barrett the other day, that amazing shot that he made. So
right.
karma might be on their side. Sometimes good things are coming. Who knows?
Yeah,
When things like that, I think I wrote about that. I've only seen it 3 times in my life,
right.
and I know when Don Nelson made the shot against the Lakers in '69, Boston
Yeah,
was in trouble at that point, and that kind of settled things down, and Boston held on. And
yeah.
that last year, Halliburton was that portent for what was going to happen in that series,
Right.
and this
That's
year,
crazy.
we'll see.
Yeah,
But I think Toronto's got a better chance than
agreed.
Orlando.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, I agree. Both the Cavs and the Pistons are 8.5 point favorites, and it'll probably be those two moving on. We're well over, but I got to talk about that shot. You did write about it, and I was going to bring it up. I completely forgot. That's one of the most incredible shots because you cannot replicate it, right? Every other shot that I could think of in the NBA, bank shot, a wedgie, right? You can shoot it and you can make it happen. You cannot make that shot happen. That is just luck. That is just, which is why it's only happened probably more than 3 times, but on the biggest stage, 3 times in the NBA. It hits the back rim, goes straight up. And Barrett's shot probably went up higher than it. You can never get really tell how high Don Nelson's went, but it went higher than Halliburton's shot. And it came straight down. Unbelievable. You cannot replicate it. That is just the basketball god saying you're going to win this game. It's crazy.
yeah, the if I remember the Nelson one, the clock was the 24-second clock was going down, and they just threw the ball to him. And he was right around maybe a step inside the foul line, and he took that shot because he had to.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid watching that and said, "Oh my God, they're going to win!" And that was when I realized because he got scared. The Lakers were making a comeback, and then last year going into the Knicks Indiana series, I think most people would have taken the Knicks as the favorite. And when Halliburton, because Indiana was an upstart, when Halliburton made that shot, well, maybe they have a chance. And
Yeah.
everything kind of changed because from that point forward, the series, Indiana was the team that was being chased by the Knicks as opposed to before the series, Indiana was chasing the Knicks. So it's very interesting that shot. I'm sure, like I said, it's happened many times, but those are
Yeah.
the 3 I remember.
Yeah. Unreal. And if you haven't seen Don Nelson's shot, don't know. I didn't watch it live. I don't want to call that out, but I have seen the pictures. I have seen the video. Google it. Check it out. It's unbelievable. And Barrett's shot was incredible. And let's see if that is
Oh,
a telling us
just
what's going to happen. Go ahead.
just to add something to that,
Mhm.
if you get a chance, go to Prime. They've got a thing on Jerry West on his life. It's a couple-hour thing. It's great.
Yeah.
But that was the last time with Bill Russell. That was 1969. And I believe they show pictures of him walking off. It was just, you could just see the frustration that, like, because the Lakers had the better team in that series. And you could
Yeah.
just see that we can't beat this goddamn team. We just can't beat them. It just doesn't work. And as a kid watching it, rooting for the Celtics. You didn't quite realize like the effect on people's lives that the whole game had with Wilt
Wow.
and yeah. So
Yeah.
it was interesting. And in retrospect, I feel bad for Jerry West. Not for the Lakers, just Jerry West.
Got it. Appreciate that qualification. Thank you.
Yeah, I had
All
to.
right. We'll make sure to link that show to wherever you're watching or listening to this. But that's it. Our time is up. We went well over another shot clock violation. But as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We will also link it wherever you are reading or watching this or listening to it. But again, join us next week for more random NBA thoughts as we recap the second round. It's going to be a very interesting second round of the playoffs. We'll talk about it next week. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.